Greetings, combatants. Welcome to episode 7 of the Beginner series. Today, we are going to talk about the talent tree. Which talents are important? Which ones should you ignore completely? And more. Also, I must admit, I forgot to cover some basic things in episode 1, but do not worry, we will fix that right here. So, let us begin. First, every beginner should go to the store, find the free rewards, and yes, watch those ads. Twice a day. I know, it is not fun, but in return, you will get coins, souls, and even characters. Bronze, silver, and gold. A small effort for a big reward. Next, this is very important. The Combat Pass. Go to Trials, complete the Combat Pass missions, and you will get great rewards. You will receive many useful things. And, most importantly, 115 Dragon Crystals. That is enough to open 11 beginner summon packs, and trust me, you want those packs. Now, let us move on to the talent tree. First of all, there are two types of players in MK Mobile. Those who have 102 talent points, and those who have 100. The players with 102 stu talent points are the old players, while new players start with 100. However, new players can reach 102 talent points by beating the Shao Kahn Tower 2 more times, but I highly recommend that you do not go beyond 102. First, you cannot use more than 102 talent points anyway. And second, there's a risk of getting banned, so avoid going over 102 talent points. This is actually a bug that appeared in update 3.6, but it still hasn't been fixed. And once again, players are paying for the mistakes of the developers. Because Shao Kahn Tower doesn't just give you talent points, it also gives you relic fragments, which are used to unlock or fuse Shao Kahn in the relic hunt. So naturally, players grind Shao Kahn Tower for those fragments, but let's be honest, relic hunt becomes boring after you complete it 2 or 3 times. This is one of the biggest issues on the developer side. They refuse to fix the bug, yet they are banning players for it. Now, I have to say, this is just my speculation. It is not confirmed that they are banning people specifically for this bug, because their support system is, well, trash. They don't even tell you why you were banned. They just send you a generic email saying you were banned for cheating, exploiting a bug, or modifying game files. And that's it. Now, you have to play Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo, and guess what you did wrong. Sometimes, they send you a ban notice for violating the terms of service. But which term, exactly? They never say. Now, look at the response I got when I asked them about playing on an emulator. Customer support strongly discourages the use of third-party applications to launch or download the game. I mean, what? They are employees of a multi-billion-dollar company, and they don't even know that Android itself is a third-party software. It is already owned by Google. It is open source. Mobile companies do not own the Android operating system. So technically, every Android user is already running the game on third-party software. It doesn't matter whether you're using Android on a phone or on a Windows PC, because Android is already a third-party system. So my second question is, who hired these uneducated people for customer support? Now, let's look at this line. In their terms of service, they can ban you for any reason, including if WB believes the information you provided is not correct, current, or complete. What does that even mean? Should I provide my full home address, my bank details, my banking password, my biometric data, just to play a mobile game? No, thank you. I will pass. The game only requires an email address to save progress to their cloud servers. What exactly could a player provide wrong in that? I seriously do not know. Who wrote these terms of service and how they got approved in the first place? Anyway, try to avoid making any mistakes on your end, but if you still get banned, forget that account. There is only a 1% chance of getting it back, because they don't even look at your appeal. Alright, now let's move on to our main topic. Offense, first row, Mantis stance. Blocked attacks deal 2% more damage. At max level, it's 10%. This talent is completely useless. Never use it, not as a beginner, not as a veteran. Lion Stance increases basic attack damage by 1%. At max, it's 5%. Another useless talent for everyone, from beginners to veterans. Tiger Stance ignores 2% of the opponent's toughness. This one is also useless for everyone. Conclusion, the first row is useless. Just add 1 point in any of them and move forward. Second row, Precision. This talent is very important for every player. It increases the combo ender chance by 10%. At max level, it is 30%. Combo enders are very important. They generate more power. You need combo enders to apply Deathmark, or to perform Brutality. We will talk about that later in this video. Opportunist, stunned and frozen opponents take 10% more damage. At max, this increases to 50%. This talent is very good for Scorpion and Sub-Zero, but it is only useful in Faction Wars or the Crypt. In Towers, we already have damage boost gear. Once you max your gold characters, this talent becomes useless, so don't use this talent. Always go with Precision. Gambler. Special attack minigames receive a 12% bonus to their result. Max is 20%. It is very underwhelming and useless, so go with Precision. Conclusion, only Precision is a good talent in this row. Third row, Killstroke, 11% special attack 3, and X-Ray fatal blow attack damage boost, max 15%. This talent is useless. Lin Kuei Tutor Edge, 10% critical damage boost, max 22%. This talent is very good. Critical hits and critical damage are so important in this game. Stranglehold, 3% basic attack damage boost against enemies affected by fire, poison, or bleed dot, max 15%. This talent is good, but not very useful because your dots already do good damage. Conclusion, only Lin Kuei Tutor Edge is important in this row. Rapid Response, 30% special attack 1 damage boost on max. This is a very useless talent because man tested it so many times. It only applies to minimum damage, not the maximum damage you achieve in the minigame. For example, if the base damage is 100 and you achieved 100% in the minigame, the highest damage would be 200, and 30% more means your character should do 260, but instead, your character will only do 230, because this talent works on base damage, not the percent you achieve in the minigame. Black Dragon Training, 17% critical hit chance boost on max, a very good and useful talent. As I mentioned, critical hits are very important in this game. Exposing Weakness, this talent is useless, same as Stranglehold. Thunderous Blows, useless talent, same as Rapid Response. Shirai Ryu Teachings, critical hits gain 10% more power upon impact, a very useful talent to generate power faster. Cruel Affliction, 20% fire, poison, or bleed dot damage boost on max. This is also a very useful talent for dot teams. Conclusion, Shirai Ryu Teachings and Cruel Affliction are both useful talents, so you can use them in different scenarios. If you're using a dot team, then use Cruel Affliction. If you're using a non-dot team, then use Shirai Ryu Teachings. However, Cruel Affliction will become useless when you unlock Ravenous Myelina, because she boosts dot damage by 100%. So, you can stop using Cruel Affliction after unlocking Ravenous Myelina. Lightning Blow, 15% chance to disable all enemy special attacks, and X-Ray or Fatal Blow attacks for 5 seconds on special attack 1 use. A very good talent when you are using an SP1 spammer, and opponents are Power Drain immune, or you don't have any Power Drainer on your team. Also, this talent can disable X-Ray as well. Very powerful talent, I always use it. If you are using SP2 teams, then you can skip this talent for that particular team. The Art of the Tsunami, 30% chance that combo enders, additionally deal 20% damage to all tagged out targets. It's a trash talent. 20% damage? Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Don't ever use this talent. Unbridled Savagery, 30% unblockable attack damage boost. Well, very good on paper, but not useful in fights. Man tested it, and it doesn't make any difference. Conclusion, only Lightning Blow is a good talent in this row. Special Endings and Deathmark Technique. I will not go into much detail about both talents because both are useful, If you have a brutality or friendship set, then use special ending to trigger brutality or friendship on opponents when they are below 25% health. This is useful for boss fights and any kind of resurrection. The same goes for Deathmark technique. It also disables any type of resurrection, so use both talents wisely. I prefer using Deathmark technique in normal fights on my veteran account because my damage is so high. Enemies can't stay alive until brutality or friendship. So that concludes the offense section. Now, let's move on to the defense section. Bear Stance, 25% max health boost, useful in faction wars and crypt, useless in towers because towers have better health gears. Late game, totally useless. Rhino Stance, take 20% less basic attack damage, useless for all players because nobody wants to get hit in the first place, so don't ever use this talent. Hawk Stance, 20% resistance to all debuffs, very useful talent for all players. I always use this talent. Intimidating Presence, 20% opponent unblockable attack chance reduction. Another useless talent. You don't want to get hit in the first place. And if the enemy is strong, such as in tower battles, they will kill you, even when you're blocking. Stalwart Defense, 20% opponent critical hit chance reduction. Another useless talent, same as previously mentioned talents. Reaver's Armor, same as the previous talent. Lethal Blow immunity, useless. Oni's Blood, blocked basic attacks deal 30% less damage, useless for you. Useful to AI in auto mode, because AI blocks every time when you put the game on auto mode. Shogun Dominance, blocked special attacks deal 20% less damage, useless talent. Centaurian Defense, 20% chance to reflect 100% damage from unblockable attacks. This talent is not designed for use. This talent is only designed for AI in faction wars, because I use this talent for almost every boss fight in this account to reflect damage on bosses when they do special or basic attacks, and it never triggered a single time. Every boss battle took me 20 to 80 tries, depending on the boss stage, because Classic Ermac is bugged. So I roughly wasted 200 tries only on bosses, and this talent never triggered once in those 200 tries. Art of the Shield, 20% shield break resistance. This talent is useful if you are using the defensive talent tree, but I recommend everyone don't use the defensive talent tree until you are stuck somewhere in a tower and dying a lot. I will discuss more later. OIA Tech, minus 40% power drain from your character. This talent is very useful. If you are using the defensive talent tree, if you use this talent with Treacherous Tanya, you will become almost power drain immune. Ghost Armor. If you take critical damage, gain 50% of that damage as power. A useful talent for characters who work as tanks, such as Ronin Katana and Classic Jax. They have high toughness, and they take less damage from critical hits. If you max the Combat Veteran talent in support, I will explain it in the support section. Also, credit to Mand for testing it. Red Dragon Training, 20% stun and power drain resistance. A very useful talent against enemies who can stun you, and the three most annoying enemies, Cabal, MK11 Sindel, and Circle of Shadow Liu Kang. Especially useful when you don't have stun resistance or debuff resistance gears. Later, it becomes useless. Cyber Lin Kuei programming. Incoming dots and frostbite have 46% decreased duration. Another useful talent when facing dot teams or enemies that can apply frostbite on you if you are using the defensive talent tree. Fujin's Boon, 30% chance to rinse dots on special attack use. Again, an underwhelming talent, but situationally useful. Revenant, on player's death, 30% chance to be reduced to 1 health point and gain 5 seconds of invulnerability. Okay, this talent has been nerfed to the ground. It barely triggers, so I suggest you use it situationally. Like if you are stuck in a tower and dying a lot, then use this talent. Also take note, this talent triggers only once, in about 20 battles in a tower. That's how badly they nerfed it. In Faction Wars, it triggers very often on enemies, but for you, the same case as the tower. Also, if you are dying a lot, then you are playing the game wrong. The Spirit of Vengeance. On player's death, 20% chance to deal 20% damage to the opponent's current health and cause stun. This talent is very useful for for beginners and intermediates who do not have incurability gears or strong cards to beat bosses. Since Classic Ermac is bugged, the value of this talent has increased. Once Classic Ermac gets fixed, then this talent will not be as useful in many cases. So I will say, this talent is also situational. You can watch the previous episode for a demonstration of this talent, Nightwolf's Chain Lightning. Every time a teammate is defeated, each surviving opponent loses 30% of their current power. Again, a useless and situational talent. You can use this talent against bosses who all start with X-Ray, and on your first character, they will lose power. But you can use a power drainer with Wrathhammer to do the same thing. This talent is useful if it works on power drain immune characters, such as the MK11 team with Raiden and classic Liu Kang. But I have to test it. Also, there is a very rare case where you will face bosses who start with X-Rays. Shinnok's Teachings, also known as Bone Shield. After taking damage from a special attack, there is a 20% chance to apply a Bone Shield for 5 seconds. While Bone Shield is active, all incoming hits feel like scratches, and the damage they deal is ignored. This talent works the same as Revenant, hugely nerfed for you and hugely buffed for AI. Don't waste your talent points on this talent. Shaolin Last Stand. When you only have one character alive, immediately gain 1 bar of power and a 75% chance for unblockable attacks for 10 seconds. Good talent for the defensive talent tree, but quite underwhelming. 10 seconds for unblockable attacks. Just 1.5 combo and only for the last alive character. This should last for the rest of the match. Then this talent would be quite useful. But now, it is useless. Conclusion: the defense section of the talent tree is very, very situational, so I will recommend only using Hawk Stance in the defense tree and spending your precious talent points on other useful talents. Now let's move to the support section. Horse Stance, 10% power generation boost for inactive characters. Very good talent. This talent secures your tag in because whenever you tag, the other character will already have power to cancel the enemy's frame advantage. What is frame advantage? Frame advantage means whenever you tag, enemies always get the privilege for the first hit, no matter how fast you tap on the screen. Mongoose Stance, 22% recovery boost, only useful for faction wars and crypt. If your characters are on low fusion and if you don't have recovery gears, but I recommend you do not use this talent. Boar Stance. Stun now has a 30% chance to apply shield break to the entire enemy team. Very good talent for characters who have stun on their special attacks. But I prefer power over shield break against it. And you can achieve shield break with the help of many gears. So it's up to you if you want to use this talent. My recommendation, go with Horse Stance. Teamwork, 10% of power spent on special and X-ray or fatal blow attacks is refunded to each inactive teammate. This talent is my favorite because in my playstyle, I prefer to tag in with lots of power instead of collecting power after the tag. It gives me a very high advantage. My recommendation, use this talent. Spec Ops Tactics, teammates who tag in gain 20% increased power generation for 10 seconds. Very bad talent, to be honest. For only 10 seconds, it's not that good, and it only works for the tag-in character. But Teamwork works for all inactive characters, and I already explained, I prefer tagging in with lots of power instead of collecting it after tag-in. So my recommendation, don't use this talent ever. Iron Fist. All unblockable attacks generate 5% more power. Again, this talent is a mere joke in the game, because as a veteran, and even as a beginner, I never ever felt like my characters were lacking power. So 5% more power doesn't help or change things for me much. If it were 15 or 20%, I would consider using it. Live for Battle. Your Special 3 or X-Ray Fatal Blow attack costs 30% less power. Very situational talent, good for X-Ray teams, but you can't use it always. Warlock's Spells. This was my favorite talent before because it used to look like this. 26% life drain and regen boost. Very good for dot teams and regen teams. But now it looks like this. 26% vampirism and regen boost. A huge silent nerf to the ground that was not necessary, but they ruined this talent. So now, only use this talent in a team with Day of the Dead Katana. Focused. 20% damage boost against resurrected enemies. This talent is situational and only useful to beginners. Since the above two talents don't help beginners much, they can add 1 point in it and move forward. Meditation. Your special attack 1 costs 15% less power. A very good talent for SP1 spammers, such as MK11 Scorpion, Classic Scorpion, Combat Cup Johnny, etc. Combat Veteran. Every 750 points of toughness reduces critical damage by 1%. Very good talent for tank characters, such as Ronin Katana, Classic Jax, etc. They take very low damage from critical hits. And if you combine this talent with Ghost Armor, they can generate a huge amount of power and you can destroy your enemies easily. Thanks to Mand for experimenting with it. Unbreakable Will, 20% cripple resistance, a very good and situational talent, especially for Sorcerer's Tower and against classic Liu Kang. If you don't have much debuff resistance gear, after acquiring debuff resistance gear or Combat Cup Cassie, this talent becomes useless. Conditioning. Your special attack 2 costs 20% less power, a very good talent for SP2 spammers, such as classic Liu Kang, MK11 Liu Kang, MK11 Raiden, and so on. Weak point attacks. Power Drain has a 40% chance to snare, the most important talent in the game and useful for all power drainers. This talent you will use 95% of the time. Slippery 1, 20% snare resistance. Another situational talent, only use if you don't have debuff resisting gear, and enemies are snaring you too often, otherwise it's useless. Outworld Scourge. 15% chance for your special attack 1 to cost no power. A very good talent for SP1 spam teams, and this talent you will use most of the time. Centered. 10% of power spent on special and X-ray fatal blow attacks is refunded to your active character. This talent is situational, useful when you're fighting using one character, or in a battle that has the one for all modifier. But again, I prefer free special attacks over power refunds. Edenia's Champion. 10% chance for your special attack 2 to cost no power. A very good talent for SP2 spammer teams. Classic Liu Kang, MK11 Raiden, you name it. Lin Kuei Reverence. 30% chance to reflect 100% of special attack 1 damage while blocking. A defensive talent in the support section. A useless talent, don't use it. Shirai Ryu Reverence. 20% chance to reflect 100% of special attack 2 damage while blocking. Another useless talent. It even has a lower chance than the previous one. Binding Blow. This talent is newly added, specifically to counter cameos. Combo enders have a 60% chance to apply cameo attack 2 cooldown to the opponent's team for 7 seconds. Useful for crypt, as well as fatal towers where you find the cameo modifier. One last tip for the talent tree for all players. When you reset a talent column, like shown in the video. For example, if I want to change Meditation into Combat Veteran, then I will reset the talent tree up to Meditation. But there is a problem. I don't know if it's a bug or if they implemented it the wrong way, because this issue has been present since they introduced talent tree presets. It won't reset the column properly. It leaves 4 talent points in the bottom line. And sometimes you won't notice it and end up building a talent tree with 4 fewer points. So, what can you do? If your talent tree should go up to Meditation, then reset the talent tree 1 column before Meditation, like shown in the video. Then, add a point in the previous column, add 1 in the bottom line, and continue building your talent tree as you want. Alright guys, that wraps up the talent tree. I showed you which talents are useless and which are useful, so build your talent tree around those talent points and save your presets. If you have any doubts, then feel free to ask me in the comment section. Before ending the video, I want to give you one more tip. It's about support cards. You should max these support cards using coins as soon as you unlock them. Each card gives you 15% more XP for a total of 45%. This will help you level up your cards faster. Alright, it's time to thank our channel members, Daniel Furtos and Sina. Thank you for supporting the channel. Also, if this video was helpful to you, please brutalize the like button and do a friendship with the subscribe button. Gaming Heaven is out!